We might be live streaming now. Can never quite tell at this stage. There we go. Oh, okay. It actually looks like it plugs in pretty early. That's good to know. Almost as soon as I click it. Okay, cool. Let's just move that there. And okay. So, hello. In a way, I feel like today I'm returning to a topic that I came to kind of early. I think it was day 14. I honestly don't remember exactly what I said. That one was about, well, how do I actually move feelings? I just saw that title. Someone pointed it out to me and went, "Oh yeah, I remember this challenge and part of what I'm working with there." I feel like I'm like I keep finding myself returning to the same topics over and over again, and um, and sort of like each iteration being a little bit deeper. And on some of them, it feels annoying to have to keep coming back to them, because what I'm looking at is what is an actual answer. So this morning I was listening to some videos from Barry Chase about, um, well, it was in a program that she calls Brazen, having to do with what does it mean to really show up to deliver your message? What kind of way of showing up will actually come across cleanly and gives you the resilience to to deal with the fact that when you show up in your brightest form, people are not necessarily going to respond in ways that are comfortable. So how do you navigate that without shrinking? Um, there's this recurring theme in how she presents it. So I'm gonna give a quick sense of how of a piece that I received from this. Um, that yeah, this goes off into a kind of theory land that I don't quite want to do. That isn't quite what I'm meaning to do here. So part of what I'm looking at is how I have a very clear, visceral sense of having something that I want to bring. I, I get very tangled about it, and I have a hard time articulating, oh, this is what it is. And there was a moment of pretty significant clarity where I went, oh, I am in service to clear knowing. That isn't to say I have a message that I want to tell people. It's more like there is a message that I am well shaped to have come through me that is a message that lives in other people as well. But I seem to be a particularly good channel for it. When I'm talking about clear knowing, this is my best ability to articulate currently what it is that I'm pointing at. But it's kind of ironic because I have difficulty articulating the thing, but I think the thing is somehow about articulation. It is about clear understanding. And there's kind of a mess in me about that. A lot of hesitation. Um, and this shows up like at a very practical level. Like when I used to do a lot of circling, which is a type of interpersonal meditation. People sit around in a circle, which apparently is not why it's called circling. But people would sit around in a circle and just share, this is my experience of this present moment. Oh, I noticed this story arising in me. This feeling is present for me. When I hear you say that, this is what I experience. This is how I interpret what you're saying. The goal in circling is not communication, it's being with in a way that is meant to encourage a kind of transformation and opening. And I practiced a whole lot of that. Um, when people would give me reflections afterwards, by far the most common reflection I would get back is, you are really precise. Your language is really precise. Your thinking is really precise. There's something super precise about how you think. Like the word precise practically defines how I'm operating. And there's Of course, there's something funny to me on the inside about it. It doesn't feel like precision. It feels like having any kind of orientation. This is actually it's kind of a funny. It's an aside, but it also it's illustrative. It's actually illustrative of this phenomenon, like whatever this essence is in me. When I was a really little kid, like 3, 4 years old, and I would ask mom, "What time is it?" And she would say, "Oh, it's about 10." I would get really upset because I didn't want to know that it's about 10. I wanted to know, does that mean it's 9:57? Does that mean that it's 9:50? Does that mean that it's 10? Like there's like this huge range. And for me, that huge range was, it felt like I hadn't had my question answered. It felt like there's a level of, well, I want to know, what is this moment? And what I get back is, oh, the moment is roughly sometime within half an hour of nowish. And it's like, well, I remember the frustration and I still experience this. It's not just a frustration. It's something more like that's what an answer is to me. There's something about, if I ask, what is a fork? And the answer I would get back is, oh, a fork is a thing or something. And I guess it would be this sense of, well, okay, maybe when I go through a bunch of cognitive rigmarole, this is something that makes sense for other people's experience. That's enough. It counts as an answer, but it really doesn't count as an answer to me. And I don't even see how to use it as one. I need to know what a fork is. Like, is this a fork? So there's something about what seems to occur to other people as my precision occurs to me as looking at all. I often forget, and it just, even though I know the fact that people experience me as being very precise, I often just forget that that's a thing. It's like this factoid that floats in my mind that shows actually an imprecision in my modeling of other people, my remembering what it's like to be other people, that I come across as precise when I'm just making what feel to me like essential distinctions. Like I don't know how to use anything if I can't tell them apart. So there's something about, not just, oh, look at me, look at, I'm being unique, but there's something about the way that I do precision that brings in a kind of a perception that when I'm talking about these mechanisms of, oh, the way that I paint my life, the feel of my life is a direct reflection of the energies that habitually arise in my body. It's not about my analysis of the thoughts. That's second. The thoughts come second. I can see that. I can see this precise mechanism of energy wells up. It sort of hits the mind revs, the mind, and when the mind revs, I can go into more detail given a specific instance about what that revving looks like. The details matter because it's looking at a program. There's actually a programming language to the mind. When we can, when people can see this, I'm willing to say this is general. This is not just me. When I can see my mind, I can see how to edit it, kind of. And that gets to what the energy is that's driving me to talk today. Why I'm talking about, like the title I gave this video is, "Where is choice, really?" Um, so there's some limitations there that I want to orient to. Um, but this thing about being able to reprogram the mind is something anyone can do. It's not that it's not that I have some sort of magical essence that's different that allows me to edit the minds. It's more like I have some sort of natural inclination that notices that everything makes sense. There's no such thing as inherent noise. Noise is in the sense of signal to noise. Noise is a representation of it falling outside of a framework that I have, and that each bit of sound in the noise, metaphorically speaking, means something. It has causes. There's something to understand there. It doesn't mean that I have to understand it all, but there is something that's understandable. So seeing my own mind as, oh, everything I think, everything that happens in me makes sense. Most of it actually makes sense in terms of an internal logic. There's actually a vividness to the whole thing. If I just pay attention, I can see that logic. Sometimes. Sometimes it's difficult to see the logic because the structure of the mind is precisely designed in certain pockets to hide what the mind is doing. And this is part of where it gets slippery. But even those hiding mechanisms are understandable. So if I am for something, like if we want to pretend that there's a God and God makes people and each person has a mission in life, uh, whether they know it or not, it seems really obvious that mine has something to do with recognizing that everything makes sense, that it's comprehensible, that there's a way of orienting to it that is honoring something like the embodiment of omniscience. And that as a species, it's there's something like a responsibility and imperative. I think imperative is a better word for this. There's a necessity and an imperative necessity to embody as a species this kind of omniscience. We are no longer in a space where we can sort of splat around and go, well, this kind of thing sort of works and I believe in it, so I'm going to back it with effort. So there's a lot of clarity for me in that somehow what I am bringing, the sort of the essence that I have to put forward, has like just being me. What do others benefit from me just being me? Um, what what is God's filter that is me, metaphorically speaking? It has to do with this clarity that distinctions matter and they can make sense. But I notice that there's a place where when it comes to really embodying my message, my frequency, my purpose, I don't like any of these terms because there's something, there's like this magical frame that gets it's added to it, which I think is it's it's internally consistent, it's a usable frame, but what I'm seeing is frame independent. There's there's something about um, going very abstract. Let me ground this a little bit more. What I'm looking at, what in practice is a challenge for me here is when I look at, well, what am I bringing? I feel a lot of self-doubt. Am I identifying it correctly? Am I trying to get attention for the sake of getting approval, getting validation, right? Rather than just letting a clarity come through? Um, uh, am I trying to fix other people or the world? Right, and that's secretly about validation as well. But there are these things that I've noticed in myself that keep arising, and I keep having to tidy them up and sort it out, and then it arises again. Maybe the stickiest one for me is this ongoing fear that keeps getting cut down to the ground, pulling up some of the roots, and then it regrows. It regrows differently, it regrows weaker, but it keeps coming up over and over again. Am I doing this right? Am I doing this right? Like, who cares? Like I've had enough vivid experience of really transcendental states to know that the question doesn't actually make sense. One way of saying it is the only way that I could believe that it's possible for me to do it wrong, whatever it is, my life, my purpose, my existence, is to presume that there is some sort of plan, and I have the power to defy it, which already starts with a sense of me being separate. So the very act of asking the question actually reinforces the pain that the question is trying to escape from. I understand that, and yet it still regrows. So this gets to the essence of what I find puzzling. But I think it's really important to understand that when I talk about puzzling, I don't mean mentally confusing. I mean, there is some mental confusion that goes on here. Um, but the westernized world is addicted to. I'm, I want a word that means addiction without the negative connotation. I mean it as a descriptive thing. There's like this gravitational pull towards a very particular kind of blindness when it comes to a certain type of asking questions. The blindness does have consequences that are painful, and that part I do mean to include. But I don't mean it as any kind of condemnation. It's the same way that somebody can have an addiction to alcohol, and I don't mean it as a bad thing to them, or even that they shouldn't be addicted. Um, but clearly there are parts of me that do, which is a very meta level part of the point. But the when I'm talking about these puzzles, like how do I actually let go of the need to impress people? This morning, I was trying to figure out how do like, I had a bunch of ideas of, oh, I want to talk about mind shatter, and I want to talk about um, these, the like the arc of how we relate to our bodies and the importance of rooting in physicality. And like, 'cause I have ideas there that can really dazzle people, and I'm good at performing when I choose to just let go and do the performance thing. And eventually I can feel that is going to be a very powerful resource. But the reason these thoughts were occurring to me was because I wanted to impress people. That's not the point of these live streams. And the reason it's not the point of the live streams is that I don't want to make my internal priority being getting a certain reaction from other people. I want my internal priority to be living my life well and clearly. That's the whole point of doing these. And then I can see the game theory, I can see the logic of why doing that more and more fully will result in more benefit for other people. It might result in people being very impressed with me. It should, if I'm doing it well, also result in a lot of people being really pissed at me, really upset and really bothered and triggered and blaming and um, what's the term, demonizing me. Like, and um, and actually, at this point, for the most part, I'm actually unbothered by people demonizing me. I just don't care that much anymore. That part of the development has worked. I'm actually open to that. But there's still this sense of something empty in me that I want validation, which is different from me feeling fulfilled being on stage. So I'm looking at that and noticing I understand it. I see it. My mind sees the pieces. I actually have a lot of the detailed experience of even the energy arising. So why does the energy still arise? And when I ask that question, I'm not asking for a verbal answer. I'm not asking for a model. I'm asking this in the same way that a rock climber asks, how do I get up past this little blockade? Hearing a verbal answer might help if it turns out to be usable, but that isn't what it means to answer the question. To answer the question means actually moving up. The body has a lived answer to climbing up this particular difficult spot on the climb. So that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for how do I actually let go? I have let go of other pieces before. It's not like I have no clue how to let go of anything at all. I feel something kind of like progress, but there are recurring themes. There are these recurring tendencies, like me wanting to dazzle people. I feel that not as that's not as embedded as it was before. So there's something like progress, but it's progress on a specific trajectory, and that trajectory, first off, I've observed that it is possible to make progress on something, feel like I've got it, and then come back and discover, no, actually, the core has not been pulled out. Like the roots about this, am I doing it wrong? Am I doing it right? How do I do it right? That anxiety keeps regrowing. Each time I feel like I've cracked through and I've become free of it, I then find it regrowing again. Differently, not as strong, but somehow I'm not getting the actual seed. I'm not touching the essence and dissolving that. The same thing with dazzling people. Like I feel like it's in reach. Um, the same thing actually applies to this bit about being demonized. Like I say, like I actually don't care, and that's like 99% true. But I think that I would still feel impacted and have a whole lot of digestion to do at a physical level. I think I would actually become physically ill if um, I had a widespread cancel culture thing hit me. It's not as bad as it would have been even a couple months ago, let alone a year or two ago. Um, I can. It used to be that if anyone thought that I was unreasonable, I would feel physically ill. And now I know there are lots of people who think I'm completely off my rocker. I have people who once were friends who, as far as I can tell, have decided to just never pay any attention to me anymore, just to ignore me and basically write me out of their lives, because they think I am too insane. I'm too like irrational, um, and that hurts. But it doesn't get me. It doesn't activate mechanisms in me anymore. So in that sense, I have a lot of progress. But the same thing that would appear for me when it was one person, I still bet would happen um, if I had, like, if everybody around me just decided I was nuts and wrote me off. That would be hard. And I feel into that, and I go, well, why? Like, why is? I mean, emotionally hard makes sense. Like the same way that when I think of some people who once seemed like they were friends, but it turns out they were only friends with me if I showed a small portion of me, and that is a kind of rejection. It's a sense of we're not for each other, and there's still a little grieving to do there, but it's just a pain, right? If them sending me messages saying, "I don't believe what you just said on this video on thus and such date, that's terrible," I go, okay, well, I'm sorry you feel that way, and tough shit. Like I'm not too concerned about it. Um, and so in that sense, there's a lot of freedom. But if everyone rejected me, I can feel how that would hook me. And what I mean by that is it would activate things that would keep me from having clarity. I would try to reject the reality. I would try to fix it. I would try to change things instead of being with what's true, instead of always preferring truth. And all of these hooks are about preferring something other than truth, preferring a certain outcome over truth, preferring people to admire me over whatever is real, preferring that um, I feel a certain way in my body over whatever my body is responding to in the world as it is. So, this, when I say hooking, I guess I could also say lying. Why do I have any inclination whatsoever to lie? I can see in each instance why it makes sense and how there's work to do to dissolve it, and how that involves accepting it rather than rejecting it, instead of condemning the lie, which is another lie. Because the fact that I am lying to myself is true. So if I actually care about the truth, I have to honor the fact not only that this is my condition, but that there's a reason for it. I got here somehow. And there's a reason why it doesn't dissolve. Calling reality names doesn't actually help me. And I keep feeling like when I observe, like with this, like what if I get it wrong? That fear, like, am I bad? What's wrong with me? That whole energy signature in me, I don't have the power to let it go. This touches on the things that I referred to a few days ago when I was talking about, I forget what I titled the video, um, but but in essence, like what it's stuck in my mind as is prayer. What does it? Oh, surrender. I like the term I used for the video was on surrender. There's something there that I get on one level, recognizing, yeah, I don't have power over these roots. I don't have control. There's something like I know how to surrender or how to pray or how to let go at a meta level that helps up to a certain point. And I still observe there being something like energetic dirt that gets in the way. Like, how much more powerful could I be if I were just relaxed and fluid and let what I have to say just come all the way through? The reason I don't is because I don't trust myself not to add barbs and hooks and gunk. Um, like the last couple of days, part of the reason I wanted to bring up this is I noticed over the last few days, a lot of what I kept wanting to bring started having more of a teaching flavor to it. And I stopped referring to my own lived experience. It became hard for me to even remember that I had lived examples of my own that I could bring forward, even to highlight this is a true thing. Here's a way that I experience it. This is how I worked through it. Here's a result. There are things that I can say that are very clean and clear about that. You know, what's involved in navigating certain mechanisms that have to do with getting out of the victim triangle, about noticing, uh, like, noticing the importance of connecting to the body and having the mind build a bridge. This is a particular piece where I think I have a lot of expertise that I don't see very much elsewhere, and I would love to offer more clarity about this business of um, spirituality is often emphasizing the truth. And when I say spirituality in this context, what I'm referring to is something that, like, real scientific work, and I don't mean to trivialize science at all, like real scientific work, like the stuff of how does reality work? The sincere inquiry in the process of exploring is a form of spirituality in the sense that I mean. I could also just say the pursuit of actual truth. But there is an important distinction between lived pursuit of the truth in scientific circles versus scientific consensus and culture and belief. They're importantly different. They're not entirely different, but there is a different energetic core to them. And how much is the focus on certainty and knowing versus exploration and coming to know the truth, whatever it might be? And there's some trickery there. So there's a lot, but there's a lot of emphasis in spirituality labeled as such, and we're coming to understand what is the need of wisdom? How do we as a species cultivate wisdom that emphasizes the answer and being at the answer? Oh, you need to dissolve your ego. You need to do this kind of meditation. You like dedicate yourself to a practice. Uh, you need to prefer truth. But there's a question of how. How do we go from where we are to that? Oh, just be there. You're already there. Okay, great. But how? By asking that question, you're lost. There's a confusion here where the answer being given is giving a frequency, it's giving a tone that if you let impact you enough can help you to attune. That's the basic theory of those kinds of answers. It's why Zen is designed to be annoying. Um, but it's not answering the question from the other side, which means that you often end up with these attitudes that show up in spirituality of of what's the mind even for? The ego is the enemy. And the reason for that is that that's actually an egoic distortion, because the ego, which is the individuated sense of self, doesn't know what to do, and it needs to in order to have a way of orienting to the spiritual pursuit. So a huge amount of what I'm looking at is, I think we can build a bridge. I know there's no need to build a bridge to here and now because we're already here. But if you don't know that, and it feels like there is a spiritual journey, then there's a necessity to experience, how do I put my foot forward? If I think that I need to get across the room and I need to experience across the room in order to understand what's over there, and I'm not getting it by sitting here, I need to know how to stand up. I need to know how to walk. There's something missing. There's also a way for the demand for that to block the input. But that fact is understandable too. It is possible for this entire thing to be understandable, not any less confusing, not any less transformative or mysterious, but you can understand that and how and why and where it's going to be confusing and mysterious and befuddling. It doesn't have to be fundamentally befuddling all the way to the core where you cannot distinguish between gaslighting and enlightenment. That's unnecessary, says I. I think it's essential for the human race to move forward to really own that. This is a lot of what I can see is essential. But I notice that there is a place that is at the edge of my own understanding, which is, where is my actual choice? When I look at the ways that I get hooked, I watch how, like, when thinking about, oh, I can make this thing about mind shatter, and I might still do that. I think that mind shatter is a big term I was using back in August, and I think that there's a thing to notice about our lived experience that is in contrast to embodiment. It's another angle on seeing what this bridge is like and what it means to build it. But the reason I was thinking about it is because I was modeling other people's experience of it and imagining them being amazed. And a part of me is noticing that and going, oh, wait, am I doing it right? And so not only am I getting hooked on the am I doing it right, but I'm also, like, the whole reason that energy got activated of the am I doing it right? What's wrong with me? The reason that energy came about was because I already was hooked by this need to impress. And seeing all of that and sort of distancing myself from it, I can watch this engine run, and I can pull the power plug temporarily, and I can vent the power elsewhere, like what I'm doing here. I'm bringing this forward because this is far more vulnerable and less consistent with those patterns. So by bringing this forward and talking about it, it's bringing me into dialogue with the very energies that are trying to masquerade what is going on inside me, because I don't want that. I'm not interested in that. A part of me clearly is, but I am not, whatever I am. So, but I look at all of that, and there is a sincere question: how does this machine dissolve, get repurposed, something? Because right now it's getting in the way of something that I want to live. And that feels very right. It feels very right to unhook myself. When I imagine what happens when I am unhooked, or I don't even care if I'm the one that does the unhooking, if the unhooking happens, the direction I move in feels better. It feels much more expansive. It feels like being more true and more in attunement with truth. That's the direction I want to go in. So, how do I choose that? And I can notice, oh, it's not up to me, and I can try to let go. But I'm actually limited in how much I can let go. I still want this. So, as I trace, well, then if I stop pouring my effort, if I take my own advice, my own observation, what I can see is obviously correct of ceasing to pour energy into places where I don't have control. I don't have control over making myself not care about how I'm coming across to and amazing other people. That isn't a power that I have. I can diminish it a little bit with willpower over short periods of time. And if I'm talking actively about it, I can feel it sort of whittling away a little bit. But I don't have the power to let it go. So it doesn't make sense for me to try. But then there's this buzzing, like I can feel how much like when I'm struggling on a math problem, or when I'm trying to figure out a really tricky situation, the effort of struggling sometimes does actually help with the process of solving. And there's something about trying to let go that feels like it moves in a useful direction. Mm, there's this impression of something like on the inside, I feel like the choice I have, the one place of free will that I actually have. I don't have free will over how I feel. I often, in practice, I don't really have free will over what I say. I have a little bit of local control, but in practice, like today, I could have talked about mind shatter anyway, but I can't have talked about mind shatter the way I wanted to. I didn't have it available to come forward in a way that felt fully resonant in my body. I am talking about this question of choice today because this is what's accessible right now. So, the place that I seem to have control is something like how much I am choosing to let go, how much I am choosing to surrender. But that's not quite right. I can't even control how much I let go, but I can control how much I try. Kind of. Sometimes I can't. Sometimes I actually run into a limitation where I go, I'm out of juice for trying. I need to rest. I don't have the option. But at some meta level, I can attend to the fact that I am resting in order to recuperate resources so that I can continue. I can continue to surrender. I can continue to try to surrender. I can continue to let go of the effort I'm putting into anything to end the war, as Jack Gorenfield talks about. As far as I can tell, I don't feel like I have the precision yet for identifying this is the point of free will. Even in terms of what my experience is, I'm not talking about in terms of theory. Again, this is not about a cognitive thing. This is not about a left hemispheric analysis. This is about I want to open. I want to relax. I want to move forward. I want to encourage whatever this is that is trying to come through me to come through. I want to serve this. How? And this isn't about a concept. This is a lived question. How do I get past this blockade? How do I take a step forward? How do I let go? So, in that sense, me asking, where is my choice? Is the same question. Where do I actually have the lived experience of free will? in a way that matters here. I don't quite have the precision yet, but I'm starting to feel into it. It is a feeling of I can choose how devoted I am to getting there. I can't choose how that appears in manifestation. I can't choose how that appears in terms of the energies in my body. I can try to post-process those. I can try to affect them and go, wait, that energy isn't quite aligned. But if I can choose, I notice I do have the power if I pay attention to let go of the post-processing. And that's something like, let me actually see what reality is. Let me see what I am. Let me stop putting in blockades. It feels like a very powerful hint. How do I actually stay here in my body? Instead of staying here for a few moments and then thinking about, look at that, I'm staying in my body. But instead, being here. I can choose that. And there's the flicker. And then I kind of leave. So this, for me, as I've said many times before in many videos on other topics, although kind of this one, this is an active edge for me. This is the edge of my growth. I have the very clear lived sense that once, like all of these puzzles are in some sense one puzzle. It is the puzzle of truly letting go. Letting all of this do its job. I'm just trying to identify what my job is. I've been told it many times. I've been given hints, and now I'm looking at it going, for one thing, I can see the path of ease that if I actually let go all the way, if I find a way to let go, I don't quite know what the language is here, but if I find a way to do this, or if it happens to me, maybe it's not up to me. But if this happens, then tremendous ease, boundless ease. Everything is perfectly effortless. I can see it. I see it exactly. That doesn't mean that there isn't struggle, but the struggle is within a context of effortlessness. It is part of the ongoing flow. It is being in flow with all of reality. I can see it. I can smell it. Sometimes I taste it and I'm in it for moments. Okay. And that's where I'm going. That's definitely where I'm going. But then the second thing, and this to me enlivens my heart, it excites me, it feeds my ego, but it feeds my ego in a clean way. It feeds my sense of, oh, this is something beautiful to bring to the world. As that happens, and after it happens, I'll be able to name it. I think that I will be able to provide the instruction manual I fucking wanted. I wanted a user's manual for the mind. I wanted a user's manual for life. And I think that the direction the human race is going in, we will have one. I'm looking forward to offering my contributions to it. But part of it right now is I have to figure it out myself, because no one's speaking my language. No one's pointing out the phenomenological details, the experiential details that I need in order to answer these questions. So I'm going to solve it. And then when I solve it, I will understand why others haven't articulated this before. And I will understand how to articulate it. And I bet if I am for something, that's what I'm for. Cool. So that's my stream for today. Thanks for listening. I want to remind you, or let you know for the first time, I'm not assuming anybody's watched any of these videos. any of the previous videos. Because of some weird setting in Facebook that for the life of me, I cannot change. As far as I can tell, I can't even find what that setting is. Um, I don't see replies to my live streams. If you write a comment, I don't see them unless you tag me. So if you want me to be sure to see a comment, make sure you tag me. If you've made comments in doing the replay and um, and you want me to see them, then go back and reply to your own comments, tagging me. Otherwise, I just won't see them. I don't get notified. Okay, that's it for today. Thanks for listening.